RVs are homes on wheels. They rattle, and when things rattle, they shake loose. So let's say that you have a screw that came loose because over time the hole became stripped out, which is actually not uncommon to see on the thinner paneling inside RVs and outside on the fiberglass exterior. If you're in a pinch, open your supplies bin and grab a zip tie. Insert the zip tie into the hole about as far as the screw will penetrate and start threading your screw. The zip tie decreases the size of the hole, which gives the screw something new to bite against. And then last, just cut off the zip tie before tightening in the screw. You can also use toothpicks or matchsticks, but I found zip ties to be a little more rigid, and they're probably already something you have in your RV. Now, I'm a big fan of using anchors or expanding anchors when it comes to screwing into thinner surfaces that can easily strip out, but zip ties can be a great fix while you're on the road, and they work well enough that you may never have a problem with that screw again. Welcome back, everyone. Today we have an RV tips and hacks video. I know those terms are generally overused, but these are kind of the fun things that we learn on the road that are worth sharing with others, things that make RV life a little bit easier and could potentially save you a little bit of money as well. So it's important to keep some grease on your hitch ball. It provides lubrication between the metal on metal friction between the ball and the tongue, which makes for a smoother and quieter tow, but also slows down the wear and tear you get on your coupler and coupler lock. With constantly keeping grease on the ball, one of the complaints I see a lot from RVers is also constantly getting grease on their pants. So here's a little trick. Grab a quart-sized sandwich bag. The ones with the plastic zipper seem to work better. Put some of your preferred grease on the ball, put the bag over the ball, and just zip it closed. So this will obviously keep grease off your clothes, but more importantly, it keeps contaminants off the grease when you're not hooked up. A hitch ball is cheap and easy to change out and replace, right? But a welded trailer coupler is a much more expensive and involved process to remove and replace. It's also gonna save you some time from having to constantly add grease to your hitch ball, you know, the grease that's been transferred over to your pants, or any grease that's been washed off in the rain. It looks a little funny when you're driving around, but it's also a good conversation starter at campgrounds. When you're ready to hook up, just remove the bag and zip it up. You still want to completely clean and recoat the ball with fresh grease occasionally, but this will cut down on how often you're having to do that. Tara wanted mirrors on the inside of her closet doors, and I wanted something that fit in this recessed area that was only a little over 8 inches wide. I wanted to try to avoid glass. I'm always thinking about trying to keep my weight down. Plus, glass mirrors usually have frames that need to be screwed in, which you can't really do on this type of thin panel board. I couldn't find anything that really hit all these marks until I came across this really cheap mirror kit. Because of the price, I was honestly not expecting this to be anything I'd be happy with. They're made with acrylic, so they're flexible, they're extremely light, so much in fact that they just mount with double-sided tape. I normally don't buy this really cheap no-name stuff on Amazon, but I have to say, for $8 I was completely surprised. They also come in a couple different sizes, and they can be put just about anywhere. If you're looking for an inexpensive solution that you don't have to drill holes, definitely look these things up. I'll put a link down below. This next one you may have seen before, and if you have, please stick around because I want to cover some things that aren't always mentioned with this little shortcut. Now, this doesn't apply to motorhomes, but the running lights on towables get their power through the 7-pin connector. Also, in most cases, but not all, your backup or observation cameras get their power from the same circuit as the running lights. In other words, there's no way to turn on your running lights or your backup cameras unless you connect your 7-pin to your tow vehicle. Or at least let me say this, there's no method built into the RV from the manufacturer to do this. If you want to check the bulbs on your RV and your truck is either not available or not parked close enough, you can use a jumper on the trailer side 7-pin connector. The workaround we are about to discuss involves a 7-pin round SAE or standard RV trailer plug. SAE and standard RV are exactly the same. Now, they are color-coded differently, but electricity is colorblind and the pins are in the exact same locations. This is most likely what you're going to have if you're in the US, but there are some different plug configurations, so that's something you want to confirm first. Just remember, everything is going to be flipped on the truck side plug because you're turning the trailer plug around to connect it to the truck. Looking at your 7-pin connector on the trailer with the notch at 12 o'clock, this terminal labeled as number 6 is 12 volt positive from the coach battery, and this terminal labeled as number 1 is the 12 volt positive input for your running lights. You can simply connect a 15 amp fuse between these terminals to turn on the lights. This is not going to test the brake or turn signal filament on your lights. It's only going to test the running lights because you're jumping over to the running light pin. However, you can jump power from the 12 volt pin over to the turn signal / brake light pins to test test those. If you have reverse lights on your trailer, they can be tested by jumping power from the 12-volt positive to the center terminal. The power terminal and running lights are right next to each other on the connector, so an ATC fuse will work there, but it won't work on the other terminals because they are just too far apart. In that case, something like an inline fuse holder with spade or blade connectors on the ends will be your best bet. And of course, whatever you're using to jump power should be properly fused for that circuit. There's a ground terminal in here at the number 3 position, so you definitely don't want to run power to that, and your trailer brakes get power through the number 4 pin, so leave that one alone too. This is also probably not something you want to do and then walk away from. If something or someone knocks that jumper out, it could potentially ground against the frame. But this is an easy way to quickly test lights or a backup camera if you don't have a truck available to plug into. I refuse to charge a membership fee on this channel, and I want to keep it that way. Without sponsors, there are no videos, so I hope you'll stick around for a short message from today's video sponsor. RV Snap Pads are a one-time installation, permanent solution for fifth wheels and motorhome landing gear, and travel trailer stabilizers and tongue jacks. They provide more surface area, which means better stability and less sinkage on soft ground. Made from recycled tire rubber, they grip better on uneven surfaces, and they won't gouge or rust stain your campsite or driveway. Stack pad blocks and other accessories are also now available. Use our link below and get 10% off your entire order. You've just finished up a caulking or resealing job on your RV, and of course it always works out that you had to open a new tube to finish the job. You can buy products like caps or plugs. You can just put a screw or nail in the tube. All of those are fine, but today I want to show you what I've been doing that seems to seal the tube up pretty well. If you're resealing something, you may also be wearing rubber gloves. So what I've done is just cut off one of the fingers of the rubber gloves once you're done, place it over the tip, and run a zip tie around the base of the glove. Nitrile rubber gloves are generally non-porous, so if you crank down on that zip tie, you can, for the most part, prevent any more air getting inside that tube. Tankless water heaters are starting to become the standard now. I think a lot of you have been using them for a while, so you may know this next one already, but many of you, like me, are new to using them, or you're going to eventually use one, so hopefully this helps. With a tanked water heater, you would jump in the shower and adjust the hot and cold faucet until you got the temperature you wanted. Because the water heater tank is constantly being heated at a certain temperature, you are going to get that temperature from the tank whether you crack open the faucet or let it run full blast. With a tankless water heater, it works a little bit differently. Now, there's a couple tankless water heater manufacturers, but they all need to see a certain flow rate to ignite. That rate ranges from about 0.3 to 0.7 gallons per minute, again, depending on the manufacturer. That means if you open both the hot and cold faucet at the same time, but then turn down that hot faucet just enough below that 0.3 to 0.7 GPM, you will not get hot water. Another difference with tankless water heaters is the control panel to adjust the temperature of the hot water. I've just found it easier to set the hot water temperature to the temperature you want for your showers. Then when you shower, turn on only the hot water faucet and the water temperature is perfect without having to make faucet adjustments. This accomplishes a few things. First, you don't have to worry about if your hot water faucet is open and flowing enough to ignite the water heater. It also saves propane and money on propane because you're not using gas to heat water that's eventually going to be cooled down before it even gets to you. So use that water heater temperature adjustment to your advantage. And I also want to thank Jarrett from Our Next Adventure for sharing this tip with me. So lately, a few of you have been asking how I secure my Power Watchdog EMS to the campground pedestal. On these units comes a metal eyelet. It cannot be removed without cutting the eyelet, cutting the cable, or completely disassembling the unit. Hughes is not the only company to put these security eyelets on their EMSs. Other companies do it, but not every company does it. Now, this is a 50 amp pedestal I installed on the side of my garage. In a campground, the pedestal will usually be on a stand or sometimes attached to a pole. So there's a couple different ways to do this. I'll show you what I do now in just a minute, but what I've done in the past was use a bike lock like this. I wanted to get the thickest cable I could through this eyelet, which is about 17 millimeters wide. Best case scenario, the breaker box is on a pole that's just too high to reach anything over, and in that situation, these locks work great. You just wrap it around the pole, lock it, and you're good to go. But the reality is most campground breaker boxes are on some type of pedestal that's only a couple feet off the ground, around, and there's no real delineation between the width at the bottom of the base to the top, so you can just slide the lock over top of the breaker box and away your EMS goes. So recently I switched to a cinch lock, similar to the other lock, except you can pull this cable through the lock and cinch it tight, and even though you can still slide this up a pedestal when it's tightened down, you won't be able to pull this over the door, so it gives you some more options. Will any of this stop someone with a pair of bolt cutters and a desire to steal your EMS? Absolutely not. I know someone's going to comment that locks only stop honest thieves. I get all that, but there's a lot of opportunistic thieves out there. Locks do slow people down, it draws attention to the situation, and maybe that's enough to just get them to go somewhere else. If you really want to prevent your EMS from being stolen, you're better off installing a hardwired option inside your RV. I will put some links to those models down below. This is what I've been using. These cinch locks work pretty well. If you use something else to lock your EMS or any other gear that you keep around your RV, please post it down in the comments below.